Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Strategy Skills podcast, where we're again using an audio and video format. In today's podcast, I'm going to touch on the value chain, and I'm going to touch on it in a very brief way because obviously I cannot show you all of the value chain analysis. It'll take too long. But all of this will be available, and it may already be available by now, on the power sector study on the website, right? But it's important you understand the complexity and you can see the much more detailed analysis and how we constructed everything on the website. But this will give you a sense of the challenges you would face. I think that value chain analysis is very poorly done. It's one of those words that have become so common in business that when you hear it, you don't even think about it. It's like the word waste. You know, I teach people how to do brainstorming by getting them to define waste. I don't think anyone's ever defined waste correctly, even though everyone uses the term. Waste in a business, how do you define that? You can try, but I'm sure you'll get it wrong. Value chains are very similar. People think they know what it is, but they don't actually know what to do with it. Everyone talks about value chain analysis, but no one knows what to do with it. It's like Porter's 5 forces. Everyone talks about it. Everyone knows roughly what goes into it. But when it comes down to it, people just leave it aside. Now, the value chain analysis is where we had to build the value chain. We had to figure out what are the segments of the sector. And then we had to figure out what is the size of each sector and how much profits could be made. This is incredibly difficult. There are off-the-shelf reports available where people try to figure out what sales would be. But what you invariably find is that everyone is using a different definition. They may use a different definition for a transformer, a different definition for what a sale is. For example, for some of them, a sale includes the cost of selling the construction project. For those of you who know the construction industry, it costs millions and millions of dollars to land the concession to build a power station. Sometimes tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions. If you add it in, your numbers become skewed. So when you take all of these reports, what you realize is that they're not really useful. So one of the most difficult decisions I made is that we were not going to use off-the-shelf reports for sizing the sector and breaking down the profit pools in the value chain. We were going to construct it ourselves by conducting a host of focus interviews with numerous executives, right? And that's a tough process to follow, right? That's the way it should be done. Obviously, if you can get some good reports, great. If you are working on a tight timeline, or if the client doesn't really care about this, or the client's only paying you very little money where they don't expect depth in the value chain research, then yeah, of course, use off-the-shelf stuff. But given the scale of this client and what was at stake, you know, typically in those situations, we would want to do an in-depth report. And what we were looking for is breaking down the value chain into some components. So it's DBOM. Design, build, operate, maintain. I left out the operate part. It wasn't important. Or for those of you in the engineering sector, you know it's EPCM is another way to break it down. Engineering, procurement, construction, and I think management or maintenance, depending on where you are. Then you have generation, transmission. You can have distribution here. You can have anything you want. We broke it down this way because it made the most sense. And then we had the very difficult task of figuring out the components that go into building a generation or a power station. There's obviously feasibility studies, there's preliminary design, there's other areas. We didn't list the other areas because they're many years down the line. So we focused on the most immediate areas that Empire International would be focusing on to do work. And what we had figured out is that Empire International was only going to secure about $4.4 billion worth of work if they maintain their market share. Because remember, it doesn't just mean because Empire International is converting itself into build power stations that Empire Energy should give them the contracts. Empire Energy is going to give the contracts to the most capable party, and that may not even be their own internal division. So if we want Empire International to shift to become a construction division of Empire Energy, we have to be damn sure there's enough work for them to do, and they have the capability to secure that work. Now, in the actual study, you'll see us break this down in numerous ways. Zoom in, zoom out, go down to the project level as well. But the thing that jumps out to us here is that if you look at the size of the construction work, it dwarfs everything. And that makes sense, right? The building of a power station is more expensive than the design work. Refurbishing is also very costly. Now, the reason why refurbishment is a lucrative area for Empire International is because they were involved with building and maintaining the power stations that today would need refurbishment. So they have some advantage here, right? Construction, they have no advantage. They are behind in technology, and so they have to beef up. Now, when we tell a company, you need to play in this market, in this region, in this part of the value chain, we have to be damn sure that of that 11 billion or whatever number we're putting up, and you see the numbers change with different scenarios, and if we add in different work they could do, we will be damn sure that this market is going to occur. So there's going to be $11 billion spent by this time, and that Empire International has a reasonable chance of securing a viable share of that market, and they can do so in a cost-effective way that creates value for their owner, which in this case is Empire Energy, right? And that's where the study focuses on. Corporate strategy quickly zooms in and says, okay, how do we play? What does it take? What kind of market share do we need? What kind of capabilities? And eventually we give them this kind of set of rules. They will say, okay, if you want to implement the strategy, you need to take this amount of market share with this amount of skills, price yourself this way, manage yourself this way, organize yourself this way, and if you do the following things, you will create so much value. Of course, in this case, it's not just value, it's about ensuring the lights stay on in a very important economy. So that's value chain analysis, very high level. There's more detail on the website, but you can get a sense for how we tackle these things. I enjoy doing the value chain analysis work. Well, not personally doing it myself, but working with the teams that actually did the work, and not just in this study, but in many different studies, right? The value chain work can be quite exciting. There's different ways to do it, but as long as you remember why you're doing it and understand how you want to use it, you will be fine.